Hello and welcome to the Inside Stylist podcast, where we talk all about interiors with interviews with interior stylists, writers and the big names in interiors, from brands and PRs to artists and designers. I also catch up with industry experts in the know and get them to share all their knowledge and advice. There's so much to talk about. I'm your host, Emma Morton-Turner, an interior stylist and a writer with a ton of experience. I set up InsideStylist.com so I could share all that interiors love with you. So don't forget to head on over to the website for not only the show notes from today's episode, but for links to interior stylists, writers and assistants profiles, and a ton of inspiration. But for now, enjoy the show. So you can't have failed to notice that it's Halloween this week. And I had this idea to share some disaster stories with you in the kind of theme of Halloween. Well, it's not in the theme of Halloween at all. It's just an excuse to share the disaster stories. I've got, I think, 7 previous guests on the show, all interior stylists and writers, who share some disasters that they've come across in their working lives and how they overcame them. There's a lot of laughter going on, and the fact that we laugh at the end of it is always a good thing, but I thought it might be quite interesting to hear how people come across these things and deal with them. The first guest is the lovely Sally Denning. Now, we recorded this episode, which is number 19, in a little box room, a little storeroom underneath the Little Green Paint Company's showroom, as there was a press launch going on, so it sounds very tinny, but it was a good one. Go listen. We were talking about shoot disasters before we pushed record, and you said you don't think you've had many, and I've got to say that's a rarity.
No, I don't think I've, honestly, apart from the usual things not turning up, key items.
Yeah, like sofas on a sofa shoot.
Yeah, like sofas on a sofa shoot, beds on a bed shoot, which I have. Paint on a paint shoot, actually, I've had. No paint on a paint shoot.
Little Green, of course.
Oh no, not Little Green, obviously. One funny story that could have gone horribly wrong. So I was on location in France with a photographer and a stylist who shall remain nameless, and but this was a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I wasn't driving, thank God. But basically, the stylist reversed the car into a river. We were down in the south of France, and she reversed the car and didn't know that, with how they have those kind of
thing.
There was like a great big verge down into this. Oh my God! Anyway, all the camera equipment was in the back.
Did it go in the?
No, so it was in the water.
Oh my God!
And we had to go and find this. We were in the middle of nowhere. Had to run and find this French guy on a tractor. It was farmer, I'm assuming. Yeah. And just so, and I don't even speak French, very embarrassing. But I was trying to speak my best pidgin French, and I said, you've got to come and help us. So he pulled our car out of the river. Oh God! Anyway,
was the camera equipment?
It was all fine, thank God.
No,
thank God. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good disaster.
So that was quite
I like that one.
Suppose, yeah.
I remember taking a transit van down to Canberra Sands when where was I? I think I was on Homes and Ideas, so a long time ago. And I said, look, it's wet, it's compacted, we'll be fine. Let's not carry it all the way along. Let's just take the van all the way to the little beach huts, which are literally along the beach, and like lots of people would have been down there. Yeah, we got stuck. And Robin from TikTok, who was on the last episode, he was like, oh, what were you thinking? I was like, I need a tractor. It was like a guy in beach combs that had to come and pull me out. God. Yeah. I felt pretty stupid then. I was like, it's fine. It's hard sand. It's like, it's hard sand, Emma. It's sand.
It's not normal our job, is it?
No, it's really not. Next up is the lovely Sally Cullen, who has styled so many shoots and she's just one of the busiest stylists I've ever known, so she's probably got a backlog of disasters that she could share. But this one was a big one. Sally was interviewed in episode number 45 if you want to hear more of her stories. You must have had a shoot disaster to share. You must have I thought you were going to say no then.
No, and I'm so behind on your podcast, and actually, believe it or not, one of my resolutions was to sit down and listen to something.
Oh, put it on in the car when you're driving.
Put it on in the car, yeah, I should. We're often, we're in the car for a long time, aren't we? And there was one on the tax that I particularly want to listen to, but the one that I listened to on the way here was my namesake, Sally Denning.
Oh,
and I
yeah.
heard that she said she'd had no shoot disasters. And I just thought, you can't be telling the truth.
They're obviously so bad she just can't share them.
I literally don't know where to begin. I'm going to tell you about the two that happened to me most recently, just to prove that even old girls like me can get it wrong. Horribly wrong. So one thing, and I probably can't mention who it's for, but I lost a whole 3 weeks work last year by being very, very tired, working far too hard, and replying to my client in an email when I thought I was replying to my assistant. And I was very, very sweary.
Oh, really?
And I lost 3 weeks' work.
Oh my!
So
what? Because you'd sworn and... Oh, was it the content that
it
you
was the
talked
content,
about, not
yeah.
that
It was the
swear?
I mean, actually, it's a bit more involved than that. It's probably a client that I would never want to work for now that I know what they're like. But yes, be careful who you email late at night, everyone. And then the second awful thing that happened last year was I worked with a photographer who is amazing, but he does all the shoot production himself, and he does everything from call sheets to lunches to finding stylists to finding the location. He's a bit of a powerhouse, and he doesn't really believe in call sheets, so it's sort of half his fault and sort of half my fault for not knowing that I should have double checked. On the morning I was going to a funeral with my husband and my daughter, I got a phone call from the photographer at like 15 minutes past 9 saying, "Where are you?" Yeah.
So how did that happen? It just confusion of were
been,
dates changed
yeah,
and
basically
you didn't know?
the dates were changing between two options, and when I sent him a message saying, "Right, that's settled," then I thought he meant one day and actually he meant the other day. So thankfully the shoot was actually for the following day, so I had everything in the car ready to go, so I just had to...
Wait, you were going to a funeral but you already had stuff for the shoot ready to go in the back of your car?
Yeah.
You are super organised.
Well, I think it's because I knew that I'd be out at the funeral all day, so my prep really had to happen the day before the day before.
Yeah, you're still organised.
Well,
I load the car at 6 in the morning in those sorts of situations.
God, that stresses me out.
I do
so
get up
much.
at 5 though, so
yeah,
I'm a
you get
morning
up early,
person
don't
anyway.
you?
But yeah. I'm always worried someone's going to steal my car. No one would steal my car, but you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean.
I just worry about that.
Yeah, of course. You've got every reason to. It's full of expensive, nice things.
Yeah, and you think you lose your props, you lose your shoot.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got insurance for that though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, just checking.
But it doesn't help on the day of the shoot.
No. So actually I had to really, be pragmatic about that, and it's the photographer didn't have another stylist, and I just had to put my big curl pants on and drive there and send my apologies. Don't get me wrong, it wasn't my mum's funeral or anything. We're not talking about a really close family relative.
Yeah, but it's just that whole things slip through the net sometimes, don't they?
Very rarely,
very
but
stressful.
when they do, it's absolutely gut wrenching. When that phone call came, I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach.
But you have a very good point. Without a call sheet, how does everybody who's involved in the shoot know what's going on?
Exactly.
It's so easy to make that mistake if you align your conversation. It's so easy to do.
Well, he does everything on WhatsApp as well, so it's just easy to be scrolling through and miss that.
You can't save that to your phone. You can't.
No,
that would drive
I know.
me.
It is a little bit.
Too much for me.
I know.
I drive mad.
That's just two terrible examples from the last year. There's many, many more. One of my first really upsetting things that went wrong was Living Etc. used to do a shoot called 101. I can't remember the tagline, but it was 101 products basically, and we didn't get 101 things shot. And I remember just hysterically, probably the only time on a shoot I've really, really cried. I was hysterical. I was absolutely... I think it was my first commission for them, and I was taking it really seriously. So I managed to persuade the photographer and the location house to let us come back on the Saturday for free.
Wow.
To finish. I think my tears were quite persuasive.
Yeah.
And that's not even mentioning the amount of things that have been broken.
Yeah.
From props to homeowners things. That's making me sound like I'm a liability.
No, I set fire to Stradella Road.
Did you?
Yeah, that's our shoot disaster. Charlotte and I. We set fire to Stradella Road. I don't think anyone's going to beat that.
Was she there?
Yes.
Oh God.
Episode 2.
Okay, yeah.
Go
I've got
listen
a lot
to
of
that
catching up to do, haven't I? Wow.
next up is the very lovely Charlotte Boyd, who I worked with on Woman and Home at the very beginning of my career. And in her episode, which was number 3, we shared quite a lot of our personal moments of working together. But there was one disaster that I thought of, which is one she mentions, but she also shares another one that I'd completely forgotten about. But it was a big one. We worked together on Woman and Home. Now, if anyone's listened to the previous episode, I talked about my journey to becoming a stylist, and I talked about Charlotte and the whole crying after a really big Christmas shoot because it was just so not emotionally draining, physically draining, and just you're thinking all the time, you're really tired and stuff. But on my journey here, I was thinking about a number of things that happened on our shoots. I thought it might be quite interesting to talk about some of our best and worst moments.
God,
can you think of it? If I asked you what's the worst shoot we were on, not necessarily from, we're not going to bitch about anyone, we're not going to name names or anything like that, just kind of the memory and the experience of being a stylist and experiencing bad things. I've got something in mind that I think was one of the worst situations that we found ourselves in on a shoot. I'm wondering if you think it's the same.
Probably the worst was setting fire to Stradella Road.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Because that is so not a house you want to set fire to. And the owner, she's lovely, but she was quite fierce. And she was upstairs at the time that we set fire to the back window.
Do you remember what happened?
Yeah. And we put this garland, like a Christmas garland, but it was plastic, I think.
It was twiggy. It was all
twiggy?
wood. Yeah.
Across
like
the windowsill, and then put candle tea lights underneath it. And then this is the time where you did Polaroids, so we'd taken the shot, and then you had to wait like 2 minutes for the Polaroid to develop. And while this was developing, we all went into the kitchen.
Yeah.
And then suddenly it was like, what's that smell? And I think there were curtains as well, weren't there?
I think the photographer was standing in the doorway of the kitchen with his back to the room that this little fire was happening on, and we were all going, what is that? And then he turned around and there's like flames coming off.
And it was quite, and then...
It was the windowsill.
Yeah, but luckily I think the photographer knocked it down and stamped it all out, but the smell was unbelievable, and it did burn.
It melted all the paint on the window ledge, didn't it?
And we had to... I think I sent you up,
didn't I? We had to come clean. Yes, Emma, go and do that. Yeah, no, so I got on very well with the owner, and I just went up and said, I'm really sorry. We've had a problem. I'm just going to let you know that we will deal with it, but I have to let you know we have set fire to your house.
But you can still see on that windowsill where it was burnt, because it's painted over, but you can see there's
that
like
line
where it was burnt,
Yeah,
that was one of my...
That's one of the worst.
My other low, which was another fire incident, was I did a Christmas shoot and did a whole beautiful table centrepiece, and it was like a big metal plate full of tea lights. Anyway, it looked stunning. Anyway, so that was in our December issue, and that had come out. And then I think I was like the last person in the office leaving before I went home for Christmas, and the phone rang, and it was a man just ranting at me that his wife had copied this table centrepiece, but she'd put it on a glass plate, so she put loads of tea lights on a glass plate, and the thing had got so much heat that the whole burst into flame. It was like one big flame, and the glass plate and their glass dining table had shattered over all of their guests the week before Christmas, and he threatened to sue the magazine, and I was there on my own. I just didn't know what to do.
I know.
So in the end it all got sorted out, but I've never done anything when you do table centrepiece shoots. Never do lots of tea lights together. It's
funny, I'd completely forgotten about that, but you're very aware of things like we never ever since then, and this was a while ago, I have never left a candle unattended ever.
No,
and you know, everyone has to put the little disclaimer in the magazine.
It didn't. Maybe that come from that incident
exactly.
where I completely thought they were going to be sued. But,
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, maybe that's when it started.
Of all the interior stylists who I've interviewed and their shoot disasters, I think Maxine Brady's is the one that scared me the most. It was the biggest shoot with the least amount of props. She was on episode 007, and she was very clever in how she handled it. She stayed cool, she stayed calm, she just was very professional and just made it work, which is, let's face it, what interior stylists have to do when things go wrong. We have to fix the problems. When I spoke to Charlotte, we talked about our disasters, of which there have been many. Have you had any crazy disasters on shoots or features that have gone completely? I mean, having your props impounded is kind of... I think that's a big disaster.
Think about that one. That was quite bad. Yeah, I had another thing where I was doing a Christmas shoot, and it was my first big shoot freelance, and it was for Idle Home, which is obviously a massive rival to House Beautiful, so it was a bit of a niche for me doing this. And I was like, okay, and I had it all organised, and I had a day set up and a day shooting it. And and it was, their van got stopped by the police on the way to my shoot. And all because it was unroadworthy, their van.
My God.
So the police impounded this van with all my props in. And so I just sat on the floor of the location and just...
In an empty room?
And just called every PR I knew and just said, look...
Did you have to reset the whole shoot?
I had to sit on the floor of the setup and call everybody. So Laura Asher, amazing. Hugo was brilliant from Lombok. And I just like, my props have been pounded. I have to do this setup and this setup. What have you got? Can you get it to me? Because obviously I don't even have a van. And the morning of the shoot, I got it all there and it worked. I remember, then I had a migraine on the shoot.
Not surprised.
Sent it to apologise, a bottle of whiskey and some migraine tablets. And I was like, thank you. But I was so pleased because on the day of the shoot, the photographer turned up and was like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting you to have it all set up. It looks great. Aww. And I was like, oh my God, I did it. She had no clue.
Yeah.
Of anything that happened. Yeah, and of course then my props turned up halfway through the shoot. And I was like, here's a great load of props. Yeah, so that's probably one of my worst disasters.
It's not just interior stylists who come across these disasters. Writers have them all the time. And I had experienced something very similar to the disaster that Jenny shares from her episode, which was number 59. And well, she had a few different ones, actually. Let's hear the first one. So normally when I'm interviewing stylists, I ask them about disasters on shoots and things that go wrong. Do you have things that have gone wrong in the past?
Yeah, I mean, things go wrong. I mean, again, that's it can be exciting, but I think
not at the time.
Not at the time. No, I mean, when I was doing people's true life stories, people would sometimes just get the spooks, or you usually show the copy to them or read it back to them after you've done the interview, and sometimes they just don't like it or they've changed their mind, and it doesn't matter whether your monthly magazine is going to press the very next day, which has happened. It's, that's totally their right.
And it has to get pulled.
And it has to get pulled.
What do you do?
Well, if
cry, find someone to
go and have a little cry. But I mean, if you're organised, you have some spare feature tucked up your sleeves.
Oh, okay.
If not, well, that's where it gets exciting. You have to run around and do some proper journalism and find something to fill the gap. There's always something to fill the gap. It might not maybe be as exciting or as
sounds terrifying.
Good as you would have wanted. Yeah, no, it is terrifying, particularly I think when you're on staff and you've got your boss breathing down your neck. Oh, very scary.
I'd imagine
honestly.
Newspapers are quite fast-paced, scary places.
I've never worked, luckily, doing real lives on newspapers, but yeah, hats off to the people who do, because that's hardcore. When I was doing real lives, it was on magazines, and you've got a little bit more breathing space, even on a weekly, although the clock is ticking. And if you are a sort of fly by the seat of your pants kind of person, that's
you get like the buzz from it
a little bit. I'd much rather the weeks that went smoothly, but so people have pulled out, people haven't liked things. The other thing is as well, if you're a writer, you have to understand there are some things that are beyond your control. So the headline, for instance, there was an awful story I did. It was a true life story of somebody who'd had CJD, the mad cow disease. And this was back in the days when that was the big scare story. And it was a real big thing. She'd never spoken to anybody. She really liked the story. But as the writer, I wasn't in control of the headline. And the headline was a bit brutal. And it didn't go down well. And the problem is that all of us on staff sort of knew the headline wouldn't go down well. But the editor was sure that she wanted to put that as the headline. Unfortunately, when the mag came out, it didn't go down well.
You're the one. You're the
I'm
point
the one,
of call.
yeah,
So
and you feel
you.
you've let someone down, and you know. So, but I mean, all these things you learn from. I did a real life story of a close friend who'd done an amazing thing. She'd adopted a little girl from Russia who only has one arm. She was born without both her legs and without her other arm. And my friend, who's a physiotherapist, was visiting the orphanage in Russia where this little girl was, and just fell in love with her and knew they were meant to be together, and spent the next 2 years bringing her back to this country. And now the mum is obviously amazing, and the little girl's amazing. She does everything. I think she's in Girl Guides or Brownies. She goes swimming. She plays rugby. Yeah. She leads a totally normal life. So I wrote that story, and to me, it's a real responsibility. So as well as reading the copy, I asked to see the proof, and I wasn't happy with the headline, and for that I did go to the wall and we got it changed because I wanted her to like everything, and that was quite hard because it was someone I'd never written for that magazine before.
But that's your friend, and
that's
friendship,
my friend.
I would think comes first.
Exactly, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
that's actually very brave to do. Well, I think in your position,
I don't know. I'd do it again.
You can't leave that story, but I can see.
But it was too good. It was too good and too wonderful, and also. She was donating the money she got paid to the orphanage.
She's amazing.
She is amazing. So some stories you just really want to tell. But
but that's good though that you felt you could push your corner and say, actually no, I feel very strongly this needs to be changed, and then they take it on board. Yeah,
I think that's only, as I say, with experience that you feel you can stick your neck out. I also think is that old adage of if something is wrong, you will get listened to a lot more if you suggest how to fix it.
Yeah.
So I suggested a new headline, and that was the one they ran with. So, if you don't like something or anything, if you can come up with a solution. And that's always the way, in fact, with anything, magazines and newspapers, if something isn't working, don't just say it's not working, say we could do this.
Yeah.
And I have actually used that a lot since, I might get a commission and that's not working. Rather than just say it isn't, I will suggest 3 other ways we could perhaps do it, and usually that'll get taken up. But again, you learn all this, and you do have to develop a bit of a tough skin, particularly as a freelancer, and you have to think things aren't personal.
Yes, that's one of
it's really hard.
That's the earliest lesson I ever learned. Is that I've told this story before, but Alison Davidson was doing she was a freelancer on the magazine I was my very first magazine, and the editor didn't like something she'd styled, and I was like, oh my god, I'd be so upset if she talked to me like that. And Alison was like, it's just cushions and table settings, it's nothing personal. And it's so true. It's like, it's just one person's vision and it's not the same as yours, and that's it. You just have to move past it.
Well, that's exactly it. And if they don't like what you've written, or they don't run what you've written, again, as long as if it isn't because they thought it was poorly written, they just they haven't got a use for it, or something else has happened. Again, you have to move on and not dwell on it and see it as work.
And then with Jenny, there was always the feet issue. Have you ever regretted doing any of these features because they're so personal?
I mean, obviously with interiors, probably not. They're all great. I love all my homes and interiors features. Funnily enough, I think I mentioned to you briefly the other day. About that. I know what you're talking about. I did a feature on foot reading, which is like palm reading, where you can. There's a lady who supposedly can tell your future by looking at your feet and the lines on your feet and where your toes are and all this kind of thing. So I did a feature for a newspaper where I visited a foot reader. I had my hair and makeup, which was like makeup on my toes, had my nails done.
Makeup on your toes?
Makeup on my toes. Well, no,
take the shine off, yeah?
Yeah. A little bit of powder. There was a little bit of powder and, toenail varnish. So, my feet were looking the best they could, but they are not by any means the world's most attractive feet. And I had to have them shot quite close up with this woman holding them, and she had to be looking at my feet with a studied look, and so the piece went in, and it was fun. Everybody liked it. Kind of thought that was it. I am still now, and that was about 4 or 5 years ago, getting random emails from people who've tracked me down through my website or my blog or through Instagram or through Googling, who have foot fetishes.
Yes.
And And I get requests for photo shoots.
Of your feet?
Of my feet, yes. Private photo shoots with my feet, or pictures of my... Right, have we got some updated photos of your feet? What are your feet doing now? And
did the lady who was reading your feet tell you this was coming?
No, she did not.
She did not warn you of this?
She did not warn me of this, no. And, I have, and people asking ruder things than that, what they would like.
5 years, though, that's insane.
I know.
They're still coming for your feet after 5 years.
But you know, it shows you things you do on the internet stay around.
Yes. Your feet will be there
my
forever.
My feet stay around, exactly.
The next person to share their disaster is Alison Davidson. She was episode 32. She's the home editor on House Beautiful magazine. But she shared a story from when she worked freelance, and some of those disasters happen big time. By the way, this one was in the noisy offices of Hearst, so listen carefully. It's a bit hustly bustly, but you can hear the story and it's worth listening to. So that's highlights, but what about disasters?
Oh, how many? I mean, there's 2 occasions that kind of spring to mind. One was when I was working for this funny company called Old Charm Furniture. I'm sure they're still going. But anyways, I was doing the styling for them, and it's really funny kind of, sounds bad.
It's like Nobelian.
Sort of old-fashioned Tudor type,
Tudor,
that kind of fake Tudor. Heavy,
dark,
big dressers you had to fill with props. All of you guys will know, if you've got a dresser, it's like the idea of hell, because you have to fill it with stuff. Anyway, I was on this shoot and it was all fine. I set it all up, I was ready, it was good. And there was a PR there, who I won't mention, and she came in and just moved everything without knowing what she was doing.
Yeah.
She was a PR, not a stylist. And then saw that it was a complete dog's dinner and turned to me and said, put that right.
Really?
After I'd spent...
Had she even looked through the camera?
No.
She just walked in?
No.
That's the thing, people don't realise how different it looks through the camera to how it looks to the eye.
I think she was actually just trying to show off to the client, to be
being
honest.
part of it.
But the sad thing was the PR company lost that client. So it was a really... But that was... I mean, I coped with it. Well, I sort of coped with it. I did go into the loo and cry. But, there was a lot going on in my life at the time as well, so...
Yeah.
That was one. And there was another one where I set up a house shoot in Watmont-Thames, and I'd got Simon Whitmore to come down, so I used to work with him quite a lot. And he came down from Leicester with an assistant. It was all set up, I'd got my food, I'd got my flowers, got the whole thing. Walked in, and the couple were in the midst of splitting up, which was really sad.
And did you know that before?
I don't think I did. Do you know what? I don't know. I can't remember. But anyway, we got there, I unloaded, put my flowers in the sink, all the rest of it. And the husband came in and said, "You're not doing this." And I did my utmost to try and talk it round, because we spent money to get there, it was a day's work. And it's making me all...
Were you freelance?
Nervous. Yeah, freelance. It's making me all nervous even thinking about it. And this poor woman was distraught. And she burst into tears and said, "Oh, please don't do this, please don't." And I'm saying, "Please don't do this," in a nice way.
Yeah.
And he just wasn't having it. So we had to leave.
Oh no!
And that was it, really.
Yeah, these are the unseen things that you can't.
You cannot
plan.
No,
that,
you can't plan
just
that. I
don't
felt
know.
so sorry for her.
Poor woman. Yeah.
So that was horrible.
Yeah.
And having been through a divorce myself,
so you can
knew how
empathise
she was
as well.
feeling. So.
And had you been commissioned, or were you shooting on spec?
No, we were shooting on spec. So
there's your silver lining.
Well, yeah.
That can you imagine if you had that all was lined up and there was a deadline and then you needed it in 3 days' time and stuff?
Imagine going back to Sue and telling her that.
No, I'm not going to think about that.
Yeah, that's what I
The next interior stylist is Emily Dorr, who is episode number 20, and she shares a rather soggy story and a tale of broken bones. Shoot disasters.
Okay.
Tell me, have you had any?
Yeah, I have. And actually, when I read this question, I was like, have I? And then I think
they flood back.
Yeah, I think you kind of just put them right to the back of the mind, and you never want to hear about it ever again. But yes, when I was at Women's Weekly, I was going to be doing an outdoor living shoot. And so, yes, I called in all of these props, and then the editor had said that we could use a friend's location house, which was, I think, maybe near Brighton or something. It was kind of in the middle of nowhere, and I was driving there, and Andrea Dean was going to be coming along as well, and a photographer that I hadn't really worked with very much, but it was kind of like one of my first sort of biggest shoots at Women's Weekly, kind of on my own. I mean, Andrea was going to be there as well, but she was kind of just like, we're both sort of helping each other out.
And we were looking at the weather forecast. It's making my eye twitch. We were looking at the weather forecast the night before, and it literally said thunderstorms. And like, I know for a fact, like, if I was going down there with the home editor, she would have been like, no way, it's not happening. But I didn't feel like I had that kind of power to say, Andrea, we're not going. So we went. And this location house wasn't a location house at all. The house was actually shut up. We were using the outside space, which was near like a lake or something.
So you had no access to kettles or toilets or anything?
Oh, actually, maybe we were allowed to use we definitely would have used a toilet, but we weren't shooting in that house. Yeah. And whoever owned it didn't want these cardboard boxes in their house.
Oh.
We were allowed to use the barn.
I know where this is going.
Yeah.
Oh, there was a barn, okay.
Yeah, but it wasn't really sheltered. So all of these boxes went into this barn, which were they were quite far away from where we were going to be shooting down by this lake. You know, trudging back and forth, setting it up, and then obviously the clouds are, you know, they're rambling over us, looking greyer and greyer, and I was like, oh God. We're just like, just get on with it, just get on with it. You know, there's like all of this picnic spread out, you know, I'd got food and things, and and lo and behold, the heavens did open. At this point, like, it was probably midday or something. Andrea hadn't even arrived at this point. I didn't have anything, did I have anything waterproof? You'd think I would, because I'd seen the weather forecast, but I know for a fact I turned up with straight hair and I left with the frizziest like mass ever. And yeah, the heavens opened and everything was getting rained on, and the photographer was just like, what do we do? And I was like, I don't know. And he was like, well, I mean, I can make it look sunny, it's fine, we can work through this. But you know, I knew for a fact, like, afterwards when we saw the photos, I could see speckles of rain on everything. Yeah. And then it started getting windy, and then the photographer's camera fell over and broke.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that was game over. We had to finish.
Oh my God.
And I think at that point Andrea had turned up. We'd done like a few shots anyway, and we ended up finishing off the shots like the following week on the roof terrace at Bluefin. Like, there was like a little mound of grass. And we managed just to get our last shots there. It was pretty sad. But anyway, so we lugged everything back to this barn. But the rain had been sort of sideways and had got all of the the boxes completely soaking. So I was putting like these mashed up crochet boxes from Marks and Spencer's with in a box that was all sort of mushed up as well. And it was just horrible.
So did you have to then carry the boxes to your car to get everything home?
No, we then got a courier. We got a courier to arrive.
Said, here, you deal with that.
Yeah, and it was just like an absolute just wet mess. But anyway, we did it, and you know, we looked like troopers for doing it. And I think we actually sent a picture of me and Andrea just like drowned rats, like sent that back to the office. Yeah, sent it back to somebody in the office, and it got passed around. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, I didn't realise your hair did that when it was wet." So that was up there with one of the worst. There were others, but yeah.
I think every time I've had to do a shoot outdoors, I'm like, well, I'm shooting outdoors, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. We'll and if it rains, it will rain, but it never rains all day. And I think I can't remember ever being completely rained off. I've never heard of anyone breaking a camera on a shoot either, but I'm sure it happens all the time.
I mean, he was insured.
He must have been insured.
Yeah, he was. But it was just a really...
everything that could go wrong seemed to go wrong.
Yeah, it was just a horrible end to a rather miserable wet day.
Do you know what I thought you were going to say? I thought you were going to talk about breaking your leg just before you started a press launch. or should I say 6 weeks before you got married?
Oh, yeah, that was just super timing.
So I can't remember, you had a launch really close after breaking your legs. How did you deal? A week. Yeah. How did you deal with that? And you live in a flat, so you had to go upstairs to get to the flat.
Second floor flat. So not only did I have to like lug up all of the props that were arriving at my flat wearing a cast, I then had to get everything back down and then set up a launch. So I was doing it was a Christmas launch for Costa Coffee, and they wanted this room dressed Christmassy. So it was a really lovely one to do, and you know, I'd done all of the prep and everything, and then having a wedding in 6 weeks, I was like, I'll just go off to the gym, do some Pilates, and then walking down the steps at Brixton Station, fell on my foot, landed on the top of my foot because I was wearing like really bad, like rubbish shoes, and and I broke like a really rare bone to break apparently on the top of my foot. So I was in a cast. And then I was in this air boot thing, which was horrific. Well, not horrific, but, you know, I had to go on my hen do wearing this bloody massive, great air boot. But yeah,
How did you do the event though?
Yeah, so the event. So I found a great stylist, Charlotte Murray. Yeah, so I got her, and she was so sweet. She offered to come over to my flat. She literally carried every single box down the 3 flights of stairs to my front door. We got a taxi together. She unloaded everything. Yeah, she was amazing, because I knew exactly how I wanted the event to look. Like, I'd done sketches and everything. It was quite easy for her to sort of get on with it. I mean, I was doing my best as well, but yeah, I was a bit slow. I was sort of staying in one place and doing one table at a time, whereas she was sort of going left, right and centre and dressing everything. So yeah, but, you know, I did it.
You do what you have to do to make it work.
Yeah, you do. And actually, thankfully, I didn't really have any other big sort of shoots or anything. I think I sort of cleared my diary because of the wedding. I just thought, oh no, I'll just do workshops and things like that. I can't even remember what else I did in that time, but yeah, I remember turning up some press shows and everyone just like wide-eyed going, oh my God, what's happened?
What's happened and why are you at a show?
I've got to go. It was all in a bonus. I had to go.
Oh yeah, you can't miss that one.
No, exactly.
And last but not least is Laurie Davidson, who had to fit into a rather tight spot. I always ask people a disaster story. What's the worst thing that's happened on it? Maybe a real home shoot. Going into people's houses is always a little bit... You never know what you're going to get.
I was trying to think about this, and I guess I've been quite lucky in that I haven't had any huge disasters.
You've never set fire to anything then?
Strangely not. I'm very clumsy as well, so I have to be really careful in people's houses, because I know that I'm clumsy. I think one of the hardest shoots I ever did was actually a bathroom makeover, and the editor asked me to go and shoot it, and she'd seen pictures of it, but she'd seen pictures of like 4 different areas of it rather than a whole room shot. And so it was up in Manchester. So I remember going to shoot this.
We're recording this a long way from Manchester.
Yes. So I went up with Ollie Gordon, photographer Ollie Gordon, and we drove up together, and obviously it was a very long drive.
Oh my God.
And we got there, and the bathroom was tiny. I mean, really, really, really small. And I think we both kind of thought, we don't know how we're going to get that one room shot. I mean, it was beautifully done, but it was a real challenge.
And were there mirrors in there as well to
there were
help
mirrors.
reflect?
There were mirrors, and there was
tininess.
glass shower screen, and all the things that make it that bit trickier. So that was a tricky one. I've had all sorts of things go wrong on shoots. I mean, we had a Christmas tree just this year that was supposed to be an electrical expanding Christmas tree. So it comes in a very tiny box, and then you press the remote control and it's supposed to expand, and it didn't expand at all. So we had kind of a mini Christmas tree that was of no use to anyone.
That was like the big feature, and it just didn't work.
Yeah. On a shoot that I've just done recently for a brand, they sent the wrong colour sofa. So not the brand, the hire company.
Did they digitally change it?
Yes,
because at least you can do that now.
Yes,
you couldn't do that back in the beginning.
So there's a lot of things that I've learned over the years, kind of ways around things, and I think that's probably a very big part of being a stylist is the problem solving.
I was just going to say, we are problem solvers.
Absolutely.
Nothing, we can fix anything.
Exactly. And I've just learned, not to get stressed by these things. There will be a way around it. You just kind of have to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it. I could have literally included every single stylist I've spoken to, because everyone has shared stories. And let's face it, I've said it probably a million times in this podcast. We are fixers. We find solutions to the problems that we come across. If you don't have a sofa for a sofa shoot, you have to get one. And we have the abilities to do that. Everything is fixable, as I have said many times. But I hope this has been a fun episode for you. Happy Halloween, guys. Speak to you soon. Thanks for listening to the Inside Stylist podcast. You can find all the details from today's episode over in the show notes on insidestylist.com. If you enjoyed the show, I'd love it if you would head on over to iTunes and rate and review it. It's the best way to help other people find the show, and I'd really appreciate it. Until next time, bye for now.